time where almost anything is possible. We're going to be able to meet the needs of every man, woman, and child on this planet, creating a world that is extraordinary. And they represent, for me, the beginning of an epic age of innovation.
It's a great crowd. Welcome, everybody. So Peter, as you probably know, invests a lot in AI and longevity. He's been a thought leader in the arena. So we're going to go through the audience and predict how long each of you is going to live. Could be a little painful at times, but maybe just to start us off, on average, how long will the average person in this several thousand person audience live, and why?
So you have to remember, 100 years ago, your average age was 40. We've doubled it in the last century. Every one of you have in the back of your mind a number. You got it from how old your grandparents lived, or your parents lived, or how long society tells you you're going to live. The question is, does it have to be that way, or can you change it? And I would say that this decade is a very different decade in the future of health than any other decade. It's the result of the convergence of AI, data collection, gene therapies, epigenetic reprogramming, quantum chemistry very soon. All these things are going to help us understand how we can live longer lives. The evidence I have for you, one second, is there are species on this planet like the bowhead whale that can live 200 years long, or the Greenland shark that can live 500 years and have babies at 200 years old. The question is, why can they live that long and we can't? And it's either a hardware problem or a software problem. And I think this next decade is a decade we're going to make a dent in that. So to answer your question, I do think we can expect to have a health span, not a lifespan, a health span. Health span is how long are you vital? Are you able to get up in the morning, play with your grandkids, do what you want, feel great about yourself? That's what matters. Can we get to a health span of 100 years old? But there's one other point, and I know we talked about this, which is this idea of longevity escape velocity. So my target is to hit longevity escape velocity. I used to have some crazy ass number of how long I'm going to live. But this is a concept that Ray Kurzweil has put forward, that today, for every year that you're alive, science is having breakthroughs that are extending your life by 1/3 of a year. There's going to be a point in the future that for every year you're alive, science is extending your life for more than a year. Right? And that idea is called longevity escape velocity. So when is that going to happen? So I've written a couple of books recently, Life Force with Tony Robbins, and a book called Longevity, Your Practical Playbook. I interviewed Ray Kurzweil and George Church and David Sinclair and others, and their numbers really shocked me. Ray Kurzweil's prediction of when we hit longevity escape velocity is the next 10 years. George Church and David Sinclair was the next 15 to 20 years. So your job is to stay healthy and not die from something stupid in the next 20 years.
So let's unpack this a little bit. So if DNA is digital,
DNA, yes.
And digital doesn't degrade, in theory, if we avoid the epigenetic analog changes that lie on top of the digital platform that we all are created with, then we should be able to live a long, long time. So if you reach escape velocity, and assuming today's maximum is 120 years,
the eldest person ever is 122. The oldest person today is about 114. Yeah.
So how long could we live if we hit escape velocity? There'll probably be some future issue that comes up.
So let me preface it by saying the following. You have 3.2 billion letters from your mom and your dad, like Dr. Oz said. It's digital. You have the same DNA, the same software at birth, at 50, at 100. So if you have the same software, why do you look different? Why don't you have a six-pack at age 100 like you did when you were 18?
Yep.
And it isn't the software you're running, it's which genes are on and which genes are off. And this concept is called the epigenome, epi from the Greek word for above. And it's sort of like playing the genes. So as we get older, there's genetic drift, there's mutations, a whole bunch of things. But there's science right now, which is the hottest science coming out of a number of places, that says we can potentially reverse the epigenetic drift, turn the genes on that should be on early in life, and turn the genes off that should be off, and bring you back to an earlier state. And at the same time, we all know of a Model T car or Model T Ford or early cars that are in perfect shape, and we keep them in perfect shape by renewing the parts, by replacing the parts, maintaining the parts. There's a whole industry right now of regrowing you a heart, liver, lung, kidney, not the brain yet, but a backup set of organs at age 0. And this isn't science fiction. This is happening right now from a number of different players around the world. It is the most exciting time ever to be alive and to have that longevity mindset.
So the drivers of aging, as you all probably know, are time, gravity, and each other. And we're going to talk about all three of those, but I want to get very granular. What specifically should people in this room who are worried about time and gravity, we'll get to each other in a second, what should they be doing in order to enhance the chance they'll be alive in time for escape velocity to hit them?
So there's a number of things. I had written a book with Tony Robbins called Life Force, which is a 700-page book on the topic of longevity. I wrote recently, a few months ago, a book called Longevity, a Practical Playbook, which is just 120 pages of what you should do in diet, exercise, sleep, mindset, supplements. And I'm going to give you all a chance to download a free digital copy of that book at the end of the session. But there are a number of things, and let me just hit them real quick. The single most, and there are 4 primary things. Number 1, exercise. Exercise, stressing your body. I was at the gym this morning. I'm at the gym every morning I can possibly be. If you're over 60, I'm 63 next month, it is the number 1 thing that you can do for your life. It's exercise, giving that signal to your body. I know it's tough, do it. Number 2, get rid of sugar. Sugar, as you know, is a neuroinflammatory, it's a cardiac inflammatory. Your body was never designed to consume that much sugar. It is a poison. I don't want to make it more, listen, as my dad used to say, pan metronadiston, everything in moderation.
Yep.
But minimizing sugar. There's lots of other elements in the book about diet. There's no one diet for everybody, but there are certain absolutes. The next thing, you need 8 hours of sleep. If we didn't need 8 hours of sleep, our body would have evolved away from that. You're doing nothing useful during your sleep. You're not reproducing. You're not, getting food. You're not defending yourself. So if we could do less sleep, we would. There's one other, and I'm very proud of it. And the idea is not dying from something stupid. And let me mention this. So wear your seatbelts, wear your helmet while you're skiing. But if I were to ask all of you, how many of you are absolutely sure there's nothing going on inside your body today? 100%. You'd know that you're in good shape. Unless you had just done a full, digital upload to look, you have no idea. And here's the fortunate and unfortunate secret. Your body is amazing at hiding disease. You don't feel cancer until it's stage 3 or stage 4, right? 70% of all heart attacks have no precedent. And a significant number of those you die. We don't test for 70% of the cancers that kill you. We don't test for glioblastoma or pancreatic cancer. The ones we do test for are fine. You have to look. So 4 years ago, a gentleman, Bill Kapp, Tony Robbins, and I started a company called Fountain Life. And we have 2 in Florida, 1 in Naples, 1 in Orlando. We'll be opening up Miami as well. And we have in New York and in Dallas. These are diagnostic centers. You come for 2/3 of a day and we upload you, we digitize you. Everything knowable about you is known. And our goal is 2 things. Is there anything going on inside your body you need to know about right now? Hopefully not, but if there is, let's do something about it. And then the second thing is, what's likely to happen to you and how do we prevent it? And people go, I don't want to know. And I go, bullshit, of course you want to know, because you can do something about it early. So 2% of people who come through have a cancer they don't know about. 2.5% have an aneurysm they don't know about. 14.4% have either metabolic disease, neurodegenerative disease, cardiovascular disease. Our body hides disease. So minimize sugar, maximize sleep, get exercise every day, scan your body once a year to prevent something. Last thing, optimism. Optimistic mindset. There's a study I talk about in the book with 69,000 women, 1,500 guys, published in the National Academy of Sciences that optimists live 15% longer than pessimists.
Yep.
Which for me is like, you get a double benefit from that.
Let me ask one practical question. I'm going to shift over to your XPrizes. Supplements. Do you take metformin, which is not a supplement, it's a prescription medication, but it's been touted a lot. Rapamycin. Yeah. You take berberine.
So I used to take metformin. I've switched it to berberine just for building muscle. I set a goal of adding 10 pounds of muscle last year, which I did, because I think muscle mass is one of the most important correlates with longevity. I do take rapamycin, 6 milligrams, and I talk about that in the longevity playbook. I list everything I do and why, but it's for me. You have to go talk to your own physician and figure out and do the work yourself to find out what's right for you. So yeah, I take about 70 supplements a day. A friend says, do you know if they do anything for you? No. But I have good enough evidence, and I feel like I'm in the best shape I've ever been, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Okay. XPrize. You're obviously known for many things, but this is probably the one that may, long into the future, when we talk about our legacy, be best remembered, because it's accomplished so much. So for 30 years, you've been challenging the brightest people on the planet, and people looking for those brightest people to come together by putting bait out there, chumming the waters with XPrizes. Yeah. Your newest one is $101 million, which is an interesting number. I would sort of round it to 100 million, but you picked that number on purpose, obviously, and you have two others I know at least that are coming this year. So explain what they are to folks who may not be up to speed, and why 101 million.
Yeah, sure. The XPrize Foundation is 30 years old. It's hard for me to believe that. We've launched 30 incentive competitions over 30 years. Our first one, we offered $10 million to the first person who could build a private spaceship that could carry, a pilot and two of us into space, come down within 2 weeks, make the same flight with the same ship again. We had 26 teams, spent $100 million to win that $10 million prize. And it was great. It was modeled after a $25,000 prize that Raymond Ortega offered for the first New York to Paris flight that Lindbergh won. Yeah. And these are incentive prizes. We don't pay a good idea. We pay after you've done this thing. You have to actually build it and demonstrate it. And on the heels of that first spaceflight prize, I was able to get Larry Page and Elon Musk and James Cameron on our board and get support from a whole bunch of amazing individuals. And we've been looking for what are problems that could be solved that aren't moving fast enough, that we can incentivize. So we've launched about $550 million of XPrizes over the year. We have an amazing team in LA. Anusha Ansari, who funded the first $10 million prize, we called it the Ansari XPrize in her honor, is now the CEO of the XPrize. I serve as executive chairman. So 6-7 years ago, with my passion, my early passion was space, my new passion is longevity. The older I get, the more longevity I want, so I can see all the space stuff happening in the future. I wanted to create a prize to reverse the ravages of aging. And so we set up a competition that said, could you reverse functional loss as we age in cognition, immune, and muscle, so that we could turn back the clock 10 years minimum, 20 years goal in cognition, immune, and muscle. The first person who put up money for it was an amazing gentleman, Chip Wilson, the founder of Lululemon. And he ended up putting up $36 million. And when we were setting the prize, I wanted it to be a $100 million prize. And he said, Elon had just launched a $100 million XPrize on carbon. I got Elon to put up $100 million to remove carbon from the atmosphere 2 years earlier. And he goes, can we make it bigger than Elon's prize? And I said, sure. He said, can we make it 101 million? I said, sure, could you put up the extra million? He said, yes. That's how it got to be 101. And then we have from Hevolution in Saudi and a number of amazing benefactors. We raised 141 million for that. And we have over 300 teams competing for that prize right now.
How do you keep up with all the things that you're doing? I'm just curious, what do you read? Do you read newspapers, magazines, books? Talk to people at conferences?
I'm doing research constantly. I have an amazing team of individuals who are feeding me information. I am, I curate my media on X to follow the people who are doing the cutting edge research there, looking at podcasts and books. I'm constantly consuming. And I've got a research team. I get up every morning at about 5:30 and I write for the first hour, 2 hours, my blogs and content. So I'm constantly thinking, producing, pulling in. And then I run my Abundance Summit every year, which is, I mentor about 500 CEOs through the year on what are the cutting edge going on in computation, sensors, networks, AI, robotics, 3D printing, synthetic biology, AR, VR, blockchain. And so by teaching, I've got to learn it first to redigest it and then present it.
All right, so that quick laundry list he just threw out there, we're going to go through that very quickly because I want to touch on most of those topics. AI. Is AI a commodity? I mean, I don't see a single business pitch anymore that AI is not in there somewhere. But I actually can't tell how important it, I mean, I know AI is important, but I can't tell how important the fact that they have AI is. Is it a commodity not just for companies, but for countries? What actually is going to let some folks dominate and others fall by the wayside?
The most clear statement I can make about it is there are two kinds of companies at the end of this decade, those that are fully utilizing AI and those that are out of business. It's going to be as critical as, this is Sundar, the CEO of Google, who said as critical as fire and electricity. I believe that's true. We're going to see a lot of dramatic changes. I don't think national leaders, teachers, families, CEOs are ready for the dramatic change that we're about to see. Ray Kurzweil, who's a dear friend, a mentor of mine, the chancellor of Singularity University, we co-founded, said we're going to see as much progress in the next decade as we've seen in the last 100 years. We're in a very steep part of the curve. We're going to see what's called AGI, and it's a very undefined term. It's AI at the level of human capability, but Anthropic's recent model has an IQ of 101, which already puts it there. Grok, which Elon is building, will probably blow all of them out of the water in the next 6 months to a year. But we'll have digital superintelligence soon. What does that mean? Imagine having AI 1 billion times more capable than humans, which is the difference. I looked at it, if you look at neuron count between a hamster and a human. It's 1 billion times different number of neurons. I don't know what it means, honest truth. I just know it's going to transform society. And those of us who are going to survive and thrive are the ones who are the most agile. Let me use an analogy. 66 million years ago, an asteroid hit the Earth. It changed the environment so rapidly that the slow, lumbering dinosaurs could not adapt, and they died. And it was the furry mammals that were agile enough and able to adapt and evolve that ultimately became humanity. And so the asteroid striking us right now is AI. Now, it's going to level the playing field on health. The poorest child on the planet and the wealthiest child on the planet will have the same health care, the same level of education. We're going to demonetize, democratize, dematerialize all of these things. And so there's amazing benefits, but we have to figure out how to survive this transformation. And we were talking about purpose, right? How do we maintain purpose in our lives? And what Elon, he was on stage with me at my Abundance Summit, and he was talking about that post AGI, and these AIs will also drive humanoid robots. We will have millions and then billions of humanoid robots driven by AIs like C3PO or Commander Data. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and the when is the next 10 to 15 years we'll reach. They're going to create an epic world of abundance where you can have anything you want. And we have to navigate this world. How do we maintain our humanity during this period of time?
I sent Peter a note last night on a paper I found recently called Universe 25. How many of you have heard about this experiment?
Universe 25, anybody?
Oh, I love this.
One.
This was work done at Hopkins, one in the back, a brainiac. Done in the 60s at Hopkins, and they put 4 rats into an open enclosure, all the food and abundance they could possibly.
Rat paradise.
Rat paradise. These rats produced, reproduced, and at a certain point began forming little communities. And then, interestingly, the rats began fighting with each other. These communities began to go to war. And the result of that, interestingly, was not the devastation of the species because of the war, but the development of a very docile set of rats that weren't going to war anymore. But because they had abundance and they weren't fighting and they weren't striving, they began to aspire to be beautiful. And they called them beautiful rats because some of these rats were really pretty. They preened themselves all the time. They looked good. They felt good. You know, and so they were so beautiful they stopped wanting to reproduce. And the colony died. And this is reproduced several times in other mammals as well. So what happens when we don't have to do anything? It's not that you don't want to work, but literally you aren't as good at doing it as the robots that will be, you know, quantum enhanced and AI capable.
So I think, so a couple of things. Number one, the book I'm working on next is called Age of Abundance, and it's a follow-on to my book, Manny, that from 10 years ago that brought us together. And the story of abundance, that we're having massive abundance in food, water, energy, healthcare, and all these things are up and to the right, is happening. There's no question, moving and accelerating. But the question is, will we have a challenged life, and how do we challenge ourselves? And are we able, so one of the ideas, and this is an idea that I'm tracking very closely, is how do we merge with that tech? How do we merge with AI? How do we converge with it so that we're able to ride on this acceleration curve, so that we're able to take on grander challenges? If we don't have to struggle for day-to-day food and water, and what will we humans, we like struggle. We also like waking up in the morning and knowing the world was the same as it was the night before. We don't like that kind of dramatic change. So these are the conversations that we need to be having at the dinner table, in the corporate boardroom, in Congress, but they're not happening anywhere near enough.
Let's talk about these other technologies that you touched on. Virtual reality. Obviously, there was a big blast of attention on this with Meta moving that direction, then it seemed to slip back. I know of companies that are built around health uses of virtual reality, but what will the world look like when virtual reality is ready for prime time?
So I think one of the biggest impacts for VR is going to be education. And it's the one that I'm focused on and writing on and investing in. So I want you to imagine a future in which you or your kids want to learn about ancient Greece. And you can read about it in a book, and maybe it won't be too dry. Or imagine putting on a VR headset and you are in a photorealistic, image of the Acropolis and the Agora there, and there's a guy on a block of marble in a white toga, and he comes over, introduces himself, hey, I'm Socrates, let's talk. And you walk around and you speak with him and you have conversations with him and you engage in a conversation. We learn so much better in this interactive sense. And AI can now generate indistinguishable photorealistic video. If you've seen it in the last 24 hours, Microsoft put out a new platform which is blow your mind. From a single photo, being able to create photorealistic video of a person chatting that you can't tell isn't real, from a single photo. And so we're going to have a world in which seeing is no longer believing. It's going to definitely mess with politics, right? And we're going to default to disbelieving. You're going to see something and you're going to just assume it's fake from the beginning, because it's so much easier to generate fake photorealistic video and so forth. So these are societal triggers that we're going to have to really truly navigate.
So we've got a kids foundation called Health Corps. It's built on the principle of the Peace Corps. And you put these recent college grads into schools around the country, raised about $80 million for this program, touched the lives of millions of kids. I was talking to our mutual friend, Jack Hittery, who has created a company called Sandbox AQ, that I want to ask you about some of the concepts there. And they're going and they're teaching not just med students, but also nurses in ways that might actually make what I do, which is being a professor of surgery, irrelevant, because they could probably teach better than me. And I know just from looking at some of the large insurance company experiences with answering basic questions from consumers about health, that AI does it better than we do, not because it knows more, that's obvious. It does it in a more compassionate way.
Yes.
And think about this, if each of you asked me questions about diabetes, by the time I got to the end of the list, I'd be pretty bored talking about diabetes. I wouldn't want to say it in quite the same way. AI doesn't care. So what does that look like? Yeah. And specifically, one of the things that Sandbox has been arguing is it's not the AI, it's the quantum computing that makes it possible. So what does education look like, and why is quantum so important for the process?
Yeah, I'll just double click on what you said. I used to think that human empathy would be the distinguishing factor that we humans had with each other, but the numbers are coming out that AIs are more empathic, understanding you. You don't feel judged when you're talking to an AI, and so you're more open with it. So that's fascinating. So quantum technologies, not quantum computing, so quantum technologies are quantum computing, quantum communications and encryption, quantum chemistry, quantum navigation, all of these things that Sandbox AQ are doing. Eric Schmidt's the chairman, Jack is the CEO, spun out of Google X. So we are quantum systems as humans on a molecular and atomic level, the way our atoms interact with each other, right? We have 40 trillion cells in your body. Every cell has got billions of chemical interactions per second going on. And the ability for us we've been able to model individual proteins and individual molecules. But the next step, and I was talking to the CEO of DeepMind recently, their next step, because they did something called AlphaFold, where they were able to predict the 3D structure of every protein, give an amino acid sequence, how does it fold into a protein, which used to be like the supercomputing problem of the century, was solved with AI. The next step is, can we model a cell? And then after we can model an individual cell, your cell, not my cell, from your DNA, can we model a tissue or an organ? And then being able to create the perfect drug to treat you with. Not me, not you, and you should know that when you get a drug prescribed to you, I don't know if you know the number here, but the percent of people for which the drug actually works is something like 20%. Yep. The FDA's threshold for approving it. It's crazy. So we can begin to model you as a quantum system using AI and quantum. Sandbox AQ, A is for AI, Q is for quantum. And that is going to revolutionize medicine. Instead of going and foraging through the Amazon looking for a plant and seeing if it has a particular interesting molecule, and then seeing if that molecule does anything in mice, and then in monkeys, and then in humans, that's ridiculous. Instead, we're going to actually design the perfect molecule, manufacture it, and then give it to you knowing it's going to work. And that's the future of medicine, and that's why this longevity mindset and revolution is occurring this decade.
3D printing.
Yeah.
It's something I always thought it was like a playful little endeavor, and now I see organs being created that actually work. Explain.
Yeah, so 3D printing is amazing. I want to give you the future of 3D printing. You talking to your AI, your version of Jarvis from Iron Man, you say, can you make me a case that will fit on this iPhone? And make it, and you having your VR goggles, you're describing what you want verbally, and all of a sudden the AI is starting to create a 3D model. And you say, yeah, can you stretch it a little bit? Can you add a handle on it? Can you make it blue? Can you make it so, how much does it cost to manufacture? Can you make it cheaper? You can describe from mindset to materialization what you want. You go, that's it, please print. And then you can go from what you desire to something manufactured for you, from a piece of furniture, whatever it is. And then you can say, and put it on the net and make it available and charge anybody $1 for it, right? So everybody becomes a designer, a manufacturer. The coolest thing I saw in 3D printing ever was recently at my Abundance Summit. I had the CEO of Icon, which is 3D printing homes and communities. And what he's done is nothing less than stellar. He's gone to the greatest designers on the planet, and he said, I want you to design gorgeous homes in the 1,500, 3,000, 5,000 square foot, design them in detail. And now they're source files. And you can go and say, oh, I want this home, click, and 3D print it at I think it's, he's gotten it down below the average price per square foot of an average home in America. But it's the most beautiful design, and the architect gets a fee for every time their design is used. So all of a sudden, he's democratized and demonetized beautiful custom homes. Amazing.
Unbelievable. And the fact that you can do a house, I mean, you can do organs now, that you can make the lattice and then put individual cells, like a liver cell in there and reproduce them. We make bladders now. These things are science fiction just a couple of years ago, which is why I'm so excited when you say they can make an entire house. What about ideas like blockchain, which is another one of those ideas that I thought was in the future and always would be, but seems to be a fundamental part of cybersecurity, military, certainly in healthcare, it's now being touted again.
The most interesting application of blockchain, or maybe one of the most important ones coming up, is helping us with the deep fake world. So how do you know if an image or a video or an audio is real? So decades ago, when color printers were created that could replicate the $100 bill, right, the most dominant currency on the planet, the central banks and governments and all of the printing companies got together and created algorithms that would make it impossible to reproduce currency. Blockchain has the potential to help us track the authenticity of products and supply chains and all of those elements. So for me, that's one of the most important applications.
You own Bitcoin?
It's my primary holding.
It's your primary holding? Oh, please explain this to everybody, because I mean, the people, whenever I speak to someone who are in the banking field, they start getting allergic reactions and anaphylactic shock hits them and they collapse and keel over. Why is it your primary holding?
Well, outside of the companies that I own that I've started, in terms of my current holdings, because I believe it is fundamentally sound and the safest form of long-term asset that I can hold. So Michael Saylor, who's the CEO of MicroStrategies, who's one of the, do you know Michael?
No.
Or of him? He's one of the, who knows Michael Saylor here in the audience? Okay, so he and I were fraternity brothers together. We lived together at MIT and I believe his analysis of it. It's never been hacked. It is, for me, the idea that your money vaporizes in any other form and dilutes eventually to zero and I'm looking for a few hundred years in the future. This longevity stuff.
Who controls the global gig economy? Who's going to?
The global gig economy?
Yeah, the information out there, which is essential for blockchain, for quantum computing.
So the goal here is to build the decentralized and democratized systems where they're not controlled, right? They're not centralized. It's not an open AI, which isn't open. It is decentralized AI systems where every government, every culture, every individual has access. So we're going to have a lot of, the world is going to shake out in a few different ways over the game is the next 5 years, guys. It isn't, don't think about your children's lives or grandchildren's lives. This is on our shoulders, on what we do, where we direct things, where things are happening. It's now through 2030 is one of the most extraordinary and important times in human history. We have the ability to create an amazing world of abundance where humanity becomes a multiplanetary, where we create abundance, where we become godlike with a small g, able to do anything we want, anywhere we want. And so as you get this incredible capabilities and powers, what are you going to do with it? One of the challenges I'm out there all the time through XPrize and through the work I do is trying to encourage people. You need to get, what is your massive transformative purpose? Why are you on this planet? What do you wake up with every day? What's the impact you're going to make? What's the dent you're going to make in the universe, to quote Jobs? And then given that purpose and passion, right, what is the moonshot you're going to make? How are you going to uplift humanity, right? I have two 12-year-old boys. The number one thing I tell them all the time is first find your passion, your purpose, ask great questions, and then figure out how you're going to make the world a better place.
So help us do that, because you've got a bunch of change agents here. The giga networks that are out there, how do you access them? I mean, you just don't cold call Google. I remember going to visit Eric Schmidt and Jack Hidary at the
Googleplex.
Yes, the Google, exactly, Google X, their quantum computing. And this is 5-6 years ago. I gave a talk for the campus, and I thought it was sci-fi-ish. I really didn't get it. I've been wrong plenty of times, and this is one of the bigger mistakes that I made. How did the folks here actually turn the key to get into the door so they actually can talk to the people who are controlling the information flow? How do they tap into the pipes?
You're not gonna have someone control the information flow. You have to become an information source, right? The most important thing is proclaiming to the world, what do you stand for? What are you gonna do in this planet? And then for you to find like-minded souls, and then to go and work together to actually go and do that, right? It's not enough to talk, it's action, right? I think that's the most important thing. We are empowered. You are more empowered than the kings and the queens and the leaders of nations from just a few decades ago. More access to computation, sensors, AI, all of these things. More access to capital than ever before. What are you going to do with your life? That's the challenge, because you can do amazing things. The single most important thing is the persistent and committed mind. You have to shape your mindset first of, this is what I'm going to do in the world. This is what I care about. And then proclaim. So my massive transformative purpose is to inspire and guide entrepreneurs to create a hopeful, compelling, and abundant future for humanity. Everything I do is about, thank you. So everything I do is this message. How do you create this abundant future? How do I support you for that? I actually created a large language model. I haven't released it yet, but you can go to it. It's called purposefinder.ai. And it will go and help you shape your MTP and shape your moonshot.
Really?
Yeah.
Say it again?
Purposefinder.ai.
You have another resource you want for everybody.
Yeah, if we can put the slide up over here 1 second. I think
There's a QR code. Get your phones out. This is free, by the way.
So this is the book I put out called Longevity or Practical Playbook. And it's everything I recommend on food, diet, exercise, sleep, supplements. It'll brief you on fountain life. And then I put out a blog twice a week, one on exponential technologies and one on longevity. Please avail yourself to the stuff. My mission is to help you see the world in a different way, in an empowered way that inspires you, that gives you a mission and a vision. Or you can go to diamandis.com/longevity, and you can get that. You can get there.
Now we want you to make money. It's not working.
Okay, go to diamandis.com/longevity, and it will take you to the same place.
Diamandis.com/longevity.
Yeah.
We want them to make money. The companies you're investing in right now, I remember years ago, actually, our same guy we've been talking about, Jack Hidary, said, invested in NVIDIA. It took me a week to spell it, but it worked out pretty well. Where are the places you're putting your money now?
2 places, AI and longevity. That's it. I think they're the 2 biggest marketplaces on the planet, and the 2 most powerful things, right? What would you not pay for an extra 20 or 30 healthy years? And it's the greatest gift you can give anybody is their health, all right? Health is the new wealth. And then at the end of the day, AI is going to change everything. So I'm studying, I'm investing, I'm building companies there. Where I put my money is where I focus my time a lot of times. So I'm investing in the things that I care about. That makes sense, right?
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so honored to be here with you, Mehmet. I want to thank you and Lisa for the incredible. Let's give it up for Mehmet Oz.
Thank you.
One of the most loving and giving individuals. I'm so grateful for you.
Well, he likes my wife much more than me.
Lisa's amazing, yes.
I just shared that she's studying Jungian psychology. She's getting her PhD, so I get analyzed every night. So I will turn it back on Peter.
I have to tell the story. So we're in Riyadh together, and I'm on Zoom with my mom back here in Florida, in Boca. And Mehmet comes over and goes, "Who are you talking to?" I said, "My mom." He goes, "Give me your phone." He goes, hey, Mrs. Diamandis, she like, you blew her mind. She's like your favorite person on the planet.
Well, she did a great thing for the world, a mitzvah, by bringing you into it. So God bless you. Peter Diamandis, for all the wonderful wisdom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Manny.